Ah yes, the Game Boy Advance, a pocket-sized machine that somehow managed to pack Super Saiyan energy into 32 bits. And today, we're ranking every single Dragon Ball game on that very console, from the absolute worst of all games, to some of the games that defined all of our childhoods. We've got beat-em-ups, RPGs, and some games that just straight up make you question reality. And it's actually absurd how this list spans from some of the best DBZ games of all time to some of the downright worst games ever created. So that being said, let's go from the worst game and then make our way to the best, finding out which of these deserves a spot as number one of all time. And starting off with the worst of the worst, you guessed it, Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu. This was Game Boy Advance's attempt at a 2D fighting game, and it technically works, but that's about it. The animation itself is so stiff, like the visuals look like they were scanned from a bootleg manga, and the combat feels like two wet noodles slapping against each other. That's the best way I can describe it. And on top of that, there's no story mode. It's just fighting an arcade over and over again until you burn all of your brain cells. I mean, the roster itself is decent. You've got Boo, Broly, and even Android 18. But what's the point of having cool characters like Broly if the fighting itself is just terrible? This game is a meme for a reason. Play it once for the laughs, but then never again. And thankfully, or maybe not, moving along to number 7, we have Dragon Ball Z Collectible card game. This one, yeah, it's really weird. In fact, you probably never even heard of it. It's a digital version of the DBZ trading card game. But the problem is, unless you were really, and I mean really, into the physical version, you're gonna be so lost. No action, no exploration, just cards, decks, and a whole lot of confusion. On paper, it's not a bad card game, it's just a really strange fit for a Dragon Ball title, especially on a console like this that was built for fast-paced action. All in all, it's worth it if you're a really hardcore fan. Also, it's undoubtedly at least better than Taiketsu by most measures, but otherwise, just skip this one and move along to Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku. Okay, maybe skip this one too. Legacy of Goku was ambitious. A full-on action RPG that lets you relive the events of the Saiyan and the Namek saga. On a Game Boy Advance, I mean, on paper, that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's also barely playable. Goku walks like he's stuck in molasses. Enemies hit like freight trains, and the balance is completely off. Not to mention, you only play as Goku, who is not alive for the vast majority of the Saiyan saga, and barely in 2/3 of the Namek arc. But all that aside, the artwork, cutscenes, and music shows some serious love for the series. And it is rough, but it definitely laid the groundwork for something much, much greater to come in the future. Flawed, but very important. And speaking of flawed, coming in at number 5 is Dragon Ball GT Transformation. And it's honestly crazy that we're at number 5 and still not really into the good games, although this one I did have a decent time playing through. This was the one and only Game Boy Advance game based on Dragon Ball GT, and wow. Imagine a bare bones beat 'em up where you play as Goku and the gang, punching through endless waves of the same 3 enemies. It's shallow, repetitive, and doesn't really capture much of what made GT interesting. Love it or hate it. Visually, it's passable. And the music is honestly pretty hype. But the gameplay, I mean, I just can't understand why they didn't capture the magic from Legacy of Goku II and Boo's Fury. Just utilize that in a Dragon Ball GT storyline. It could have been so much fun. All in all, I get it. They tried to switch things up. Cool idea, but not the best execution. But now we're getting into the actual good games. And again, it's crazy how number 5 and number 4 have such a huge gap between them. And at number 4, we have Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure. Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure is one of the most underrated gems on the GBA, and easily one of the best Dragon Ball games ever made to some people. Covering the original Dragon Ball story from Goku's childhood to the final battle with King Piccolo, which is a huge amount of material. This action-packed side-scroller also blends platforming, melee combat, and even 1v1 fighting segments in a way that feels incredibly fresh and faithful to the source material. The sprite work is full of personality, the combat is fluid and surprisingly deep, and the game's pacing keeps you hooked from start to finish. And whether you're a longtime fan of the series or just the Game Boy Advance in general, this game is an absolute must play. And now, coming in at number 3, our bronze medal, is Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors. A fast-paced, high-flying, and criminally underrated DBZ title. This game took the DBZ formula and cranked up the action to 11. Aerial combat, key clashes, instant teleport counters, and an awesome 3v3 tag system. It literally feels like the 2004 equivalent to having Budokai at the palm of your fingers. It even had what-if storylines like Goku joined the Ginyu Force or Frieza training Cell. This game wasn't just fun, it was downright creative. The controls are tight, the visuals are sharp for the Game Boy, and the gameplay is just straight up addictive. But now, coming in at number 2, our silver medal goes to Dragon Ball Z Buu's Fury. Now this is where the games go from good to absolutely amazing. Buu's Fury is such a breath of fresh air. Smooth combat, amazing progression, equipable items, transformations on command, and finally, an amazing action RPG game. You go through the Buu saga with multiple characters, and it actually feels like an adventure, utilizing fusions, a level progression system, and so many unique techniques. The only downside to it is that it is a bit easy for my taste, and the stat system can be kind of broken, like you can make characters way too OP, but at the time, it was peak Dragon Ball, and a must play for just about any Game Boy Advance game fan. But that being said, coming in at number 1, and I bet you already knew what this game was going to be, Legacy of Goku II. Let's be honest, this is the real MVP of the Legacy trilogy. Legacy of Goku II fixes all of the jank from the first game and drops you right into the Android Cell saga with multiple playable characters like Piccolo, Trunks, and Vegeta. The exploration feels incredible, transformations are so hype, and the combat, while still simple, is way more fun. It has side quests, capsule collecting, a world map, and a great progression system. For a Game Boy Advance RPG, it holds up amazingly well. And this is the game that proved Dragon Ball could work wonders as an action RPG. All in all, LOG2 is one of the best DBZ games of all time, the best on the Game Boy Advance, and one of the best games I've ever played. No question. But there you have it. Every DBZ game on GBA ranked from worst to best. Some were rough, some were surprisingly deep, and some were straight up classics. I mean, think about it. These tiny cartridges carried entire sagas in your pockets. You could be on the bus, in the back of the classroom, or even like hiding under the sheets. And suddenly you're duking it out with Frieza or training with Goku. And let's be real. Who didn't spend hours and hours grinding out levels in Legacy of Goku II as a kid? Or grinding for endless amounts of time in Buu's Fury because let's face it, who didn't want to know what was behind those 150 level doors, and grinding to level 200 was just such a vibe back in the day. And the creativity. Some of these games were just oddly experimental. Supersonic Warriors had you flying across the screen, dodging attacks, and swapping characters like it was nothing. And then later in the GBA lifespan came Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure, which made beating up random henchmen feel like an epic journey across the Dragon Ball universe. And then we have to give it its props. Even Taiketsu gave me some laughs as a kid and especially as an adult. We're getting stuck on a platform in Legacy of Goku 1 because the physics just betrayed you. Painful? Yeah, but also oddly charming. These games had personality, even when they were terrible. And honestly, looking back, it wasn't just about the gameplay. It was about having the Dragon Ball universe right in your pockets. The music, the sprites, the little touches that reminds you of the anime, that's what made these games so memorable and so nostalgic for so many of us. Some were frustrating, some were confusing, but all of them, they shaped the way we played and experienced DBC as kids. But let me know, how was my ranking? Do you agree with it? Disagree with it? What is your favorite Dragon Ball Z Game Boy Advance game? And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like to let me know, and also subscribe. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys so much, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Stay powerful. Peace.